Thank you for joining me on 13 Plus. I'm Cali Lichter, and this is On the Docket, a weekly recap of crime and court in and around the state of Michigan. This week, a deadly officer-involved shooting in Grand Rapids, what we know so far. Plus, how criminals are using artificial intelligence to exploit children. And our Aaron Sullivan takes a closer look at the ICE detention facility right here in West Michigan. All that and more is On the Docket. A deadly officer-involved shooting on February 18th has left the Grand Rapids community shaken and with questions. The man shot by the officer is identified by his family as Daquan Johnson. We were told this happened after a brief pursuit after a report about Johnson riding his bike with a gun. He died at the hospital just hours after the shooting. Some body camera footage was released the next day by the Grand Rapids Police Department, and we're about to play that body camera footage, but warning, this video contains graphic imagery and may be difficult to watch. Family and friends of Johnson marched through the streets of Grand Rapids the evening after the shooting. Our Micah Cho was there and also spoke to Johnson's family the morning after the shooting. Elizabeth Elliott told him she and her family were heartbroken when they found out about her nephew. She says she hopes for transparency during the investigation so her family can have closure.
We have a lot of different narratives that are going on as to what happened, but regardless of what happened, no one deserves to be handled like that.
Elizabeth Elliott describes her nephew as a father who loved to sing.
He loved to sing with anybody, and he could sing. He was a good dad. He took care of his kids.
Elliott says she wants to see the body cam footage of Wednesday night's shooting, adding that will be the only way they can get answers.
If we have him detained and he's already on the ground, why did it take him to have to shoot him? Why couldn't they tase him? Why couldn't they just get more people there? The dogs was already on him.
Kent County Commissioner Robert Womack says the officer-involved shooting happened in his district, and after talking with the family, he said he learned Johnson's kids watched what happened to their father.
And his children also being in that apartment building, looking out the apartment building and watched the whole thing. They're calling their grandmother while this is going on. It's just a sad thing in this community, the trauma that those kids are going through. What do we have in place for those children?
Witnesses to the shooting talked about what they saw that night. They tell us they are scared and scarred about seeing their neighbor shot by police just feet from their apartment. Around 9:30 Wednesday night, the parking lot of Eastern Lofts Apartments in the Baxter neighborhood of Grand Rapids became a crime scene.
They had guns pointed or lights pointed, one of the two. I was kind of frantic, so I don't remember, but they had something pointed at him.
3 witnesses described shots being fired during an officer-involved shooting in their parking lot. Their neighbor, Daquan Johnson, is now dead after the altercation.
They were trying to detain him, and in the midst of that, they told him to stop moving.
2 witnesses who asked to remain anonymous saw the events unfold from their windows, including the moments a Grand Rapids canine was sent to subdue Johnson.
One of them couldn't get the dog to detach from him, so they both just stepped around and told him to stop moving, stop screaming while the dog was still latched, and shot him.
But how could he stop moving with this dog maliciously attacking him? They told him stop moving,
They said that 2 times. They said, you're going to get yourself shot, and they shot him.
Although Silas Dean didn't see the altercation between Johnson and GRPD, his car now holds the memory of last night.
Sad to hear somebody getting killed over here where we live and close to my car. It's not an enjoyable thought, you know. Someone dying right by your car, you know, getting shot and whatnot.
He was friendly with his neighbor and knows his family is mourning.
Really sorry that it happened, and now the children's not going to have a father.
The shooting has left the neighbors on edge.
If I already have anxiety, I was just coming from the hospital, so it wasn't what I was expecting at all. My stomach was in more knots than it was before.
I'm scared for my kids. It's troubling that the people who are supposed to serve and protect us is killing us.
The fallout continued as family and community organizers questioned the narrative Grand Rapids police offered. Arnick Nelson spoke with police and Johnson's mother. Angelica Johnson and members of the community gathered at Boston Square the evening after the shooting. They played video that shows a different angle of the shooting than the one seen in the GRPD body camera video, where Johnson appears to be on his stomach as police attempt to subdue him.
My son is gone. Gone. They executed my baby.
Angelica Johnson is speaking out against what she says was unnecessary force when a Grand Rapids police officer shot her son, Daquan Trey Johnson, who died of his injuries overnight.
Stop, please, Levi!
Thursday afternoon, Police Chief Eric Winstrom shared portions of the body camera video captured by the responding officers. Around 9:30 Wednesday night, Winstrom said GRPD officers pursued Johnson while he rode his bicycle through the Baxter neighborhood in southeast Grand Rapids into the parking lot of an apartment complex.
He's got a gun in his hand! Let him go! Let him go! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Tragically, this young man last night involved in the shooting died. Very thankful that the officers involved were not hurt, but I know that this individual has loved ones and family members that cared about him.
At a news conference Wednesday, Winstrom said he didn't believe Johnson was struck in his head. However, community organizers and family members gathered in Boston Square later disagreed. They played a separate angle that shows the moment shots were fired.
Oh my God, why did they do my...
It's at this moment Johnson is shot.
The medical people told me he was shot twice. I asked them, was my son shot in the head? Nobody has told me anything, but they won't let me see my son either.
Winstrom said Johnson was on parole for a firearms charge, and that the officers who began the pursuit believed he had a gun on him. One was found in the parking lot where Johnson was shot. According to online records from the Michigan Department of Corrections, Johnson was previously found guilty of a felon in possession of a firearm and was currently on parole. When asked if he believed if the chase began because Johnson had a gun that police saw, Winstrom said he couldn't be certain.
You know, I can't assess his intent and what his motivation was, if he thought he had a warrant or if he knew that this would, obviously you're on parole for a gun, you're not legally allowed to carry a gun, so that could have been part of his fleeing.
There were other officers on scene whose body camera footage is still being processed. And many of the questions in this officer-involved shooting go back to the use of force used by the officers and if it was justified. Our Micah Cho talked to a use of force expert who broke down the video we currently have.
The question becomes, would a reasonable police officer would have or could have acted in the same way that these officers acted? And if that answer is yes, then we kind of know how the situation is going to resolve itself.
Professor Emeritus Louis Langham of Cooley Law School is weighing in on the videos released so far in the officer-involved shooting of Daquan Johnson. Grand Rapids Police Chief Eric Winstrom released 3 videos Thursday afternoon. In the video, you can see a police canine with a hold on Johnson before you can hear an officer say he has a gun. Langham says that's something Michigan State Police investigators will look at when determining if deadly use of force was needed.
You don't have to wait until the weapon is literally pointed at you, that's for sure. The question becomes, was the individual reaching for the weapon? Or was the weapon in that person's hand? That's a big difference than if the weapon was near his shoe or his foot.
In 2022, after the officer-involved shooting of Patrick Lyoya, GRPD updated their deadly use of force policy. Some of those changes include require a warning before the use of deadly force, use deadly force only when necessary to do so, and de-escalation and the opportunity to voluntarily comply is required. With more videos yet to be released, Langham says investigators have a lot to review in the coming weeks.
All these things are going to be looked at, and that includes Mr. Johnson's history with any weapons, if there were any, or any assaultive contacts or conduct on his part, and whether or not the officers themselves have any unnecessary baggage.
Next on the docket, we go into the courtroom for the first man to be sentenced under the new hate crime statute in Kent County. And we take a look at how artificial intelligence is helping criminals exploit children. The first person to be charged and convicted under Michigan's new hate crime law in Kent County learned his sentence. Travis Bond assaulted a woman in her car and called her a racial slur in Wyoming in the summer of 2025. The first man to be charged and convicted under Michigan's new hate crime statute in Kent County will not serve additional jail time. This is video from the victim's cell phone who caught the hate crime on camera. Let's go! Travis Bond was convicted of assaulting the woman and calling her racial slurs in Wyoming last summer. The woman, who spoke to 13 on Your Side but asked to remain anonymous for her safety, said she was leaving lunch on 44th Street in June when she was waiting to turn onto the one-way. She heard a loud horn, thinking it was another car, but then saw Bond on his bike with his air horn. That's when she took out her phone, recording the nearly 30-second clip. Stupid. Bond calls her another slur before going around her car saying, "See, this is why some cops have a problem with your black people." The woman questions Bond as he comes around to the driver's side of her car and blares his horn. What'd you say? The arresting officer wrote in a probable cause affidavit that Bond maliciously and intentionally used force or violence against the woman based in whole or in part due to her race or color. In April 2025, Michigan's ethnic intimidation crime was replaced with a broader hate crime offense. In court, his attorney said this was very out of character for him and that he was remorseful for his actions and wished to say sorry to the victim. But Bond did not apologize in court.
I just want to thank my lawyers for everything that they have done. My parents, too. I want to thank them for the support.
He was sentenced to time served for 3 days in jail and 2 years probation. As technology evolves, so does criminal activity. Innovations like artificial intelligence can be used for good, but some criminals are using it for more nefarious purposes. I've been looking and investigating the rise of artificial intelligence to create sexually abusive material involving children and the very real consequences when it is found. It's not a new crime, but one that's taking a new form.
But you know as well as I do that producing AI child porn is illegal.
Right, well, I didn't know that then, because I just didn't know.
Child sexually abusive material, or CSAM, made with artificial intelligence. While some defenses claim it's a victimless crime, to the law enforcement system, that's not the case.
If you create something that, makes it look like it's a child, that's going to be just as the same as you had one that was actually a child.
Child sexually abusive material is documentation of sexual abuse and exploitation of anyone under the age of 18. Former Cedar Springs Public Schools maintenance worker Mark LaBelle admitted to making AI child porn during an interview with the Kent County Sheriff's detectives in 2024.
I also figured it was a gray area because it's not real.
And former Northview Public Schools employee Joshua Balhorn has a case moving through the Grand Rapids court system after allegedly using AI to make nude images using the faces of former students. Michigan State Police Detective Trooper Robert English says these cases are just a drop in the bucket.
We're already looking at over hundreds of thousands of tips that are coming in just specifically from AI-generated CSAM that's out there.
Only a handful of websites actually report when a user creates CSAM, and English says the inclusion of dark websites creates danger when the images can be produced in seconds. Prosecutors like Chris Becker end up being the ones to determine and press charges. As the Kent County prosecutor, he says what he's seeing with AI could be the tip of the iceberg.
I think it's scarier now because, I've been doing this 30 years. 30 years, yeah, you had some CSAM and, but it was all photos. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have phones. We didn't have the sharing ability that we do now. And so that's just exploded.
The charges don't stop at making the material. There's also a charge for using a computer to commit a crime, potentially adding decades onto a prison sentence.
As a kind of a forgotten about charge, but it carries worse penalties sometimes than even the actual crime gave rise to what you're using the computer for.
AI CSAM is something Becker sees as a gateway to other child sexually abusive behaviors.
To make this kind of a accepted procedure because, wow, it's not a real person. Well, it's encouraging that behavior, and it's not that much of a leap that you're engaged in this, AI stuff that at some point in time, well, I'm going to try the real thing.
The images created by AI aren't real, but the trauma the content creates for the minor victims is.
When children experience something horrendous that they should never have to go through, one thing that we often hear from them is that they feel alone. And part of our job at the center is making sure that no kid has to go through this alone.
That's where the Children's Advocacy Center of Kent County steps in, making sure none of the victims go through this alone and stressing to them this is not their fault.
They use a lot of threats or coercion to keep this hidden in secrecy. And so when you have the opportunity to respond to your kid and go, I am so proud of you for telling me, that just creates so much scaffolding for them to be healing later on.
The consequences for CSAM are the same whether the material is artificially generated or not. LaBelle was sentenced to 2 to 10 years in prison for aggravated possession of CSAM in April 2025. Bauhorn's case of child sexually abusive activity and using computers to commit a crime is still in Grand Rapids District Court. If you or a child you know is a victim of child sexually abusive material, we have links to organizations that can help, like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the Children's Advocacy Center. You'll find that on our website, 13onyourside.com. And next on the docket, our Erin Sullivan has been looking into an ICE detention center in Lake County. What she's learned is next on the docket. There are questions around the country about the federal detention of undocumented immigrants, with those questions hitting close to home for West Michiganders. Our Erin Sullivan joins us now. She's been looking into the largest detention center in the Midwest, right in our backyard.
Thanks, Cali. And a West Michigan man is sharing his story about the 5 months he spent inside of an ICE detention center located in Lake County. Now, activists and lawmakers have called for an investigation into the conditions at the North Lake Processing Center in Baldwin, after accusations of medical negligence and suicide attempts were reported.
Fernando Ramirez has called the U.S. home for more than 37 years. This past September, Ramirez, a truck driver, was arrested by ICE agents at an Indiana way station.
And when I asked why, they said, oh, because we cannot find you on the system.
Ramirez was arrested for not having legal citizenship, despite having a work permit.
I got a work permit for 5 years. And I've been getting renewing every year since 2008. How you cannot find me? They did not say anything else. They just took me.
After his arrest, he was sent to the Broadview Detention Center in Illinois.
Almost 24 hours in Broadview, without sleep and barely, eat, and no water, in a disgusting place.
After 2 days, he was sent back to Michigan to the North Lake Processing Center in Baldwin, one of the largest ICE detention centers in the country, owned by the Geo Group.
Not normal, but I feel like sick.
Ramirez is diabetic, and he says he did not receive his insulin the first 2 days in detention.
So they told me they don't have it. They have to order it. I said, wait a minute, I bring my own medicine.
During those 2 days, he grew sick. That's when his daughters, Samantha and Naomi, stepped in.
Because 1, Dad's dead, and 2, he has 2 daughters that were like,
Lawmakers and activists have also accused the North Lake Processing Center of inadequate medical treatment for their detainees. Last month, 56-year-old Nenko Ganchev, a Bulgarian national who had lived in Chicago for the past 30 years, died at North Lake. His family says Ganchev did not receive medical attention for his diabetes. In a statement, ICE said that Ganchev died of natural causes. But Michigan Representatives Haley Stevens and Hillary Skolton are demanding another investigation into his death and the accusations of inadequate medical treatment for detainees.
Congresswoman Skolton and I learned about the death of Mr. Ganchev. It's heartbreaking, but we also just need transparency.
Ramirez says he's witnessed guards neglecting medical attention. He says his daughter called him, alerting him that one detainee wasn't getting the proper amount of insulin. He couldn't speak English, so she asked Ramirez to help.
He told me what cell, and I went up there and took a look. He was dying.
Ramirez said he informed the guards that there was a medical emergency.
No medical came over. Lieutenants came first, and that's when I got mad. I said, what are you guys doing here? Medical should be here first. He goes, no, we have to take a look first. I said, not necessary. This is an emergency.
He said he attempted to help the man, but guards stopped him.
And I asked him, somebody needs to help him. He can barely walk. And I tried to help him, they not allowed me either.
After witnessing this treatment, Ramirez said he believes that the health of the detainees that couldn't speak English were being ignored. So he took it upon himself to help.
Because a lot of people started gathering next to me, because we help each other.
He asked guards and nurses in English to check up on certain inmates who were having health issues.
If you do not speak English, they're not going to pay attention on you.
Naomi and Samantha made sure to call and visit Ramirez to support him through his time at Baldwin.
Having my dad in there was making sure he had the proper care, advocating for him, and making sure they knew that he wasn't alone. Like, he wasn't just this random guy that they took, like he has family.
Which led them to do the same for detainees who didn't have family to advocate for them.
But I know that there's lots of people in there who are in the same situation, and I want to be able to give them as much support as I can.
That video you just saw was Ramirez reuniting with his family after he was released from Northlake. Now his daughters, Naomi and Samantha, started their own organization to help families across the country reunite with loved ones of their own. Many times, family members of those at the Northlake Processing Center don't know where to start when they learn that their loved one has been arrested. So Ramirez's two daughters teamed up to help others going through similar situations. Samantha and Naomi Ramirez started Raíces Migrantes, which means English roots in English.
After months of awaiting the release of their father from ICE detention, the Ramirez family is breathing a sigh of relief now that their father, Fernando, is back home.
I feel like our family is just like very relieved.
Just a few months ago, Fernando was arrested by ICE despite having a valid work permit. It felt like the weight of the world was on their shoulders.
You have this family member that's in there who you're watching mentally deteriorate, because they're upset that they're in there. It's a prison, they're in prison, so.
Learning visiting hours, sending money for clothes and phone calls, and making sure their father received his daily medication, well, it was all overwhelming.
It was a lot. Sometimes we wouldn't get home until like 2, 3 in the morning, and then I had to go to work the next day.
But it also ignited a fire inside Samantha to help other families like hers.
Why not do it? Why not help? It's not that hard.
The two sisters started Raíces Migrantes, a group that helps families who have loved ones in detention at the Northlake Processing Center.
But I know that there's lots of people in there who are in the same situation, and I want to be able to give them as much support as I can.
With little resources for families who can't speak English, the sisters found their work is needed. Dozens of messages from families across the country came in asking the sisters for help.
I'm still getting emails from like different states too, and like someone from New York just reached out to us.
And for some families, the work of Raíces Migrantes was the only way for detainees to communicate with their loved ones.
I'm proud of them. That's a blessing, and that means we did something right with them.
Fernando was released back in January, but their work isn't done.
We're only about 55 minutes away. What's 55 minutes? That's nothing. It really doesn't feel like anything now driving back and forth from there. And it's always just been, if we can help, there's no point in not doing it because it's easier to help than not help.
And the Ramirez family says, if this could happen to them, it could happen to anyone.
They'll take anyone. If you're a good person, if you're a bad person, if you've been helping out everyone in your community, they don't care.
The family is looking into making Raíces Migrantes a nonprofit. And Congresswomen Hillary Scholten and Haley Stevens went inside the Northlake Processing Center to see the largest ICE detention center in the Midwest, firsthand following the death of a detainee. So they did ask questions about the death of Nenko Ganchev, a 56-year-old Bulgarian national who died inside of that facility.
We're lawmakers. We need to also roll up our sleeves, as we have done, for the safety and security of our country, of our state of Michigan.
U.S. Congresswomen Hillary Scholten and Haley Stevens, both Democrats, conducted a congressional oversight visit to the Northlake Processing Center Tuesday morning.
We wanted to come here today and follow up and see for ourselves. There are 1,500 individuals from across the state and the Midwest region that are held here at this facility, the vast majority of which are men, 100 or so women.
In addition to touring the facility and talking with a small group of detainees, the lawmakers are also attempting to find out more about the death of 56-year-old Nenko Ganchev, a Bulgarian national who died in the Lake County Detention Center. Gonchev's family in Chicago accused the GEO Group of not providing adequate medical treatment to Gonchev, and that accusation is just one of many. In January, we sat down with the former detainee at the North Lake Processing Center, Fernando Ramirez. He told 13 on Your Side that he's witnessed guards at the detention center not providing medical treatment during emergencies.
No medical came over. Lieutenants came first. And that's when I got mad. I said, what are you guys doing here? Medical should be here first.
After hearing about his death, Stevens and Skolton requested that Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem and Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons investigate Gonchev's death. They said more than 100 detainees wanted to speak with lawmakers, but they only spoke with 4.
We did get the visit cut short from, by an hour, which was frustrating.
Both Skolton and Stevens said that they learned how detainees are processed into the facility once they arrived. They also discussed medical exams for detainees, conditions, and a need for transparency. They said overall, the facility appeared clean and orderly. And while most of their questions were answered by staff, the lawmakers weren't satisfied.
There are unanswered questions around Mr. Ganchev's death, and his family and his loved ones and people who have been, frankly, impacted or touched by his life story. They deserve answers. I remain disappointed in Secretary Noem. I have lost faith in her leadership and her ability to run the Department of Homeland Security, and we are still waiting for answers from her.
Stevens and Skolton said they'll be following up with detainees they spoke with to make sure they aren't retaliated against. Cali?
Thanks for joining me on this episode of On the Docket on 13+. We have new episodes releasing every week, taking you into the courtroom for the latest updates and deep dives on crime in and around West Michigan. In the meantime, we'll bring you the latest on crime in court, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com. And when breaking news affects you and your community, we stream live on 13+ with what you need to know right when you need to know. We'll see you next time with updates on What's on the Docket.